Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's. I've been very yes, that's good. Just want to make sure that there's and there's a page on there, so units. I think LED, so it's right.
Does somebody still have the clipboard? Manager.
How are you? Good.
Let me ask you.
Oh. Well, you're not. Hey, Dave, how you doing? Survived the rain. Yeah, barely. I barely survived. Yeah, that's the way I did. We started out at 2:30 that morning, the raising of the flag at the veterans, the big memorial flag. And then 10:30 at 4 Mile Church out off of 90. We go out there every year. So that's like 10:30 till about 2. Come home, rest a little bit, and get back to the parade. And then after the parade, over to the church to see the fireworks. How did that go? It was good. Yeah, very good.
I'm gonna send you that guy's.
Yeah, very good.
Send him the glad. That preacher.
Oh, yeah.
I'll send
Yeah.
you his.
Yeah, you did a good job. I'll tell you that.
Said he'd be honored to. Sure.
Okay. Okay.
How you doing?
If you got them all, that'd be right there. Yeah.
Yeah. We come, let it go. Okay, what I need to find the binder. If I don't have the binder.
You're on the agenda. Yes. you are.
This is it. All right. I'm ready. Yeah, just work these up with those pretty close along or those two guys. Yeah, I will. Try to do that when I get back home. Dennis, right? Yeah, I'll. Why is this thing big? No, I'm saying about 20. That's gonna bother me.
Get your volume turned down. Get your volume turned down.
Volume's medium.
Internet's not working again here. What the hell is that?
Kind of warning you're getting at. Kind of beacon you're getting.
Did you hear it?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still on. I don't know, just got it. What's wrong with? I've got the volume. Does it sometimes? I'll turn the volume all the way down on. Okay. Modern technology.
I need to know.
Sure it's not that long?
I've got the volume turned all the way down. Maybe it's. Yeah.
It is not 9 a.m. We will now, would you please rise? I have asked our Protestant Crossroads Church to open us in prayer.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, it's a great day. We call your sons and daughters. We thank you for this nation that we live. Thank you for this county that we live in, the friends that we know. Everything comes from you. So Lord, I just ask you, give our leaders wisdom, give them the proper respect. Lift them high today, Lord. Let their work be a joy, not a burden. And Lord, Father, I pray a blessing on Van County. May it be a lighthouse for you from now till you come. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, I will now call to order the Commissioner Court meeting for July the 5th. It is now 9:03. And first, we do have a quorum. Commissioner Barton is out on vacation. So do we have any general announcements? during the county? There are none. We will move on to item number 3, public comments. And public comments, each, we have 3 people who have requested to comment, and they have 5 minutes each. We will start with Ann Nelson to talk about agenda item 5, which is hand counting of votes.
So good morning.
Good morning.
Ann Nelson. I'm a precinct chair and vice chair with the Van Zandt County Democratic Party. I've worked as an election judge, a clerk. I've served on both the early voting ballot board and signature verification committee. I'm speaking in regards to agenda item 5. So the Van Zandt County Democrats, we strongly support public access and transparency of voting information. We want all of our voters to trust in the outcome of our elections and have the assurance that their vote did count. So if all legal provisions are met regarding access to voted ballots, whether they're from 2020, 2021, 2022, or a future election, and a guarantee that no ballots are damaged, modified, or destroyed, we support public access. Nye County in Nevada did a parallel hand count of ballots after their 2022 election. Nye County has similar voter demographics to Van Zandt County, with about 34,000 active registered voters and 20,000 votes cast in 2022. Nye County used Dominion equipment to certify the results of their 2022 election. Mark Camp is the Nye County clerk, a Republican, and an accountant. He stated that the hand count was 100% accurate, but he said Dominion results were 99.89% accurate. So a difference of only 0.0011. He attributed the difference not to fraud, not to machine error, not to a secret Wi-Fi connection, but to the method that tabulators use to determine a voter's intent on undercounted, overcounted votes. His volunteers counted 2,000 to 3,000 ballots a day. This included recounting miscounted ballots. It took 8 days to complete the count. He had between 170 to 200 volunteers from all over the state. He said they worked long hours, working through the weekend. So a quote from him, unfortunately, you get a lot of mistakes when you get people in our demographic. In this town, 85% of the people are 56 years and older. So we had to send back a lot of votes for ballots for recount. On the first day, the error rate was 25%. But over time, this did go down. So from the Nye County experiment, we see no relevant information to be gained by a hand count. Optical scanners have worked well for the past 20 years here. Texas Secretary of State audits of random precincts confirm no significant difference. We see no reason to pause the decision for new election equipment. We respectfully suggest that the Commissioner's Court and the County Clerk request quotes from both ES&S and HART so that we all know the cost, the equipment mix, the delivery schedule, and estimates for training. And thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Ann. All right, the next person to speak is Michael Fadmark.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. My name is Michael Fladmark. I'm actually live in Henderson County. I am the Democratic Party Chair. I'm also Senate District 3 Committee Man for the Democratic Party. And I'm here to support. I have nothing really to add to what Ann had to say. I'm here to support their interest in having free and fair elections here in Van Zandt County. My experience, what I want to share is that our experience in Henderson County, utilizing our S&S equipment and our polling and everything has been without any issues. So I would like you to consider not having to do the the hand count, but to utilize the system that you currently have in place. So really, I think Ann said her testimony presents everything that you need to be aware of to make your decision. So thank you for the opportunity to come before you today.
Thank you, Michael. All right, our next one is Michelle Avio. No, Michelle, you may speak because you're signed up to speak. You can't delegate your time to someone else.
Ask you questions.
No, ma'am.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, all right. Did we have another one? Do we have another one sign up?
You sure? Oh, he's fine.
I gave him one too.
Okay, all right, very good. That concludes our public comments, and I appreciate those people who came and spoke today. Okay, item number 4, consent agenda. The consent agenda items routine by the Commissioner's Court will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the county judge or commissioners request an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. And I would like to table item A, the reading of the minutes and approval at this time, so we can make some impressions.
Second,
Okay. So, motion made and seconded to table A. Is there all those in favor say aye? Opposed like sign. Motion. Okay, now we'll go to the remainder of the consent agenda. Are there any others items that we need to pull or discuss?
Pearson.
If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
Yes, sir, Pearson.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made, seconded to approve the consent agenda items. All in favor say aye. Opposed like sign. Okay, item number 5, discuss and consider hand count of votes after the November general election. This is not, and I worded it poorly. What this is permission from the Commissioner's Court for me to proceed with researching what would be required for us to be able to do a hand count after the November general election. I made the offer to do the hand count after talking with Susan and with Shannon before the demo, and they were in agreement or willing to try something that we thought we could make an effort to see how the process would work. But in order for me to do that, I would need to get, before I spend a lot of time researching with the Secretary of State, what the process, what would be required for us to do it, and researching with people who do hand counts, I need to make sure that the Commissioner's Court wants me to proceed with this or not. So, and that's, this is not approval to do the hand count. This is approval to allow me to do the research to see what would be required for a hand count and permission needed. So.
Yeah, Judge and Commissioners, I just recommend we need to table this till we get some more information on how to pursue this from the Secretary of State. And maybe reword this properly. I just make a motion that we table this for now.
Okay, motion to table. Is there a second? Okay. So the motion dies for lack of a second. So is there a motion to proceed, to allow me to proceed exploring what the process is and what approval is required for us to do hand count of votes?
So you're not asking, you're not saying there will be a hand.
That is correct. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, can I go ahead and do the research and find out what the Secretary of State says and requires in order for us to do a hand count after the actual election, and possibly to do it during a normal election, what all the requirements are in that regard. But I'm not asking this approval to do the hand count. I'm just asking approval to research.
Well, for one, you don't have to have our approval to research. You can research it all you want. For two, it's not worded that way, so legally we can't take that action. It's not an agenda item.
Okay,
That's kind of what I'm saying, is let's get the wording right before we try to approve something.
okay. So I take.
I think, I agree with Chad. I think you
Right,
just ought to go find it back, but I don't think you need a motion.
okay, so, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, so then we'll go back. Further, we would like to make a motion to table this.
I would like to make a motion to table it, so we can research this.
I'll second.
All right, motion is made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Discuss and consider and approve the selection of a grievance committee consisting of 9 public members for Texas Local Government Code Section 152.014. And that code states that and for those of you not aware, a grievance committee is for elected officials to file a grievance when they don't feel like that their salary is appropriate. They would like to get a different salary. And so the legislature has set up a grievance committee process, and that and there's one of two ways that it can be done. One, the grievance committee would consist of the sheriff, tax assessor, collector, county treasurer, county clerk, district clerk, county attorney, district attorney, and a number of public members necessary to provide 9 members. That's one way that it can be done. Appointed with 6 elected officials and then 3 public. Or the second option is 9 public members if the commissioner court votes to have 9 public members. So the county judge is the chairman of the committee, but is not entitled to vote. Okay. And the public members must be residents of the county. That's section 152.015. So what is the desire? Is there a motion from the commissioners to have 9 public members of the commissioners court, as opposed to the 6 elected officials and 3 public?
I make a motion. We have 9 public members.
Okay,
Second.
motion is made and second. Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Item number 7, discuss, consider, approve a grievance committee per Texas Government Code Section 152.015. Now, 115 states, public members of the salary grievance committee shall be selected at a meeting of the court at any time during the year, but not later than the 15th day after the date a request for a hearing is received. The hearing currently is scheduled for August the 11th, I believe, is when it's scheduled. So we need to select the members of the grievance committee. And what the process that we use is we use previous grand jury members, a previous and current or just previous?
Just previous.
Previous grand jury members, and their names have been put in this little deal. We will draw the names to select the 9. Is there anything else?
No, I'll draw the names and I'll number them as you want.
Okay. How many do we draw? It's 9. Just 9.
No, all of them. We're gonna.
Oh,
do first 9,
okay.
And then the alternates, so that everybody gets the numbers. So
Okay.
everybody will get a letter.
All right. Everyone will get a letter. So we will definitely have 9. Do I announce it?
Yes.
Sheila K. Garrett. Jamie Suzette Ayers. Patty Gay Ray. Oh, it has sticky on it.
Yes.
Emily Page Lewis. Paul Elvington Cox. Melissa Marie Daniels. Michael W. Wyatt. Paul Madera. Donetta Garza Foster. Okay. All right, and these are alternates in the event that the first 9 are unable to serve. Doris Ann Hilliard. Lois Wesley Ferguson. Tracy Lee Wood. Maria Elizabeth Montoya. David Lindsay Hedge, yep. But I'm messed that up. Pamela Ann Hall. Richard Arlen Davis. How many are there here? Perry Mac Carico. Mark Allen McClenny. Jessica Leanne Garza. John Harold Johnston. David James Andrus. Christopher Scott Johnson. Vicky Webb McAllister. Benjamin James White. Kathy Wheeler McClellan. Gwinnett Man Ray. Jessica Lee Hobbs. Lee Allen LaPrade. Christopher Sean Miller. And that includes the drawing of the names.
So who's 7 and 8? I mean, 6 and 7,
Regular or alternates?
the regulars.
Seven is Michael W. Wyatt.
Okay.
8 is Paul Dale.
No, 6 and 7.
Sorry.
7, number 7.
Okay, I just gave you number 7. Michael, number 7, number 6 is Melissa Marie Daniels. Anybody else?
9.
Amelia Garza Foster.
All right, so do we need to approve the ones we just selected, or was that?
What's your next?
It's on the agenda.
Well, that was number 7.
Yeah.
Discuss, consider, and approve. So I guess, is there a motion to approve the grievance committee select?
Second.
All right. All those, is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes. Item number 8, discuss, consider, and approve moving the date of the July 19th regular commission court meeting to July 12th, which is next week, and the reason being, we will not have a quorum on the 19th if we had our scheduled meeting. So is there a motion to move the meeting?
Don't move, Chris.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign, motion passes. Item number 9, discuss, consider acceptance. The change order request in the road and bridge materials from Woodrum's Construction. Whose agenda item is this?
It's my agenda item.
Okay.
I should have caught this. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
They've been held out.
Yeah, I got bailed out. Thank you.
Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
The road and bridge material bid that we put out for bids every year annually does provide for a change order request. But they do have to notify my office before it is presented to Commissioner's Court. So Woodrow Construction, who currently has the bid for recycled crushed concrete and a crushed rock, has notified my office of a request for change in price. It is from their bid. Currently, they will add $3 to each tonnage. We did, the first one is recycled crushed concrete 1 3/4. We did go back and look at the prior bids, and Sustainable did have a lower bid for Commissioner LaPrade. His bid is actually $36. Keegan never heard back from Sustainable as to whether those bids are they're only required to honor those bids for 90 days. So his bid, we did contact him to see if he would honor it, but we never heard back from him. So the only other that had changed was Big City Crushed Rock. Commissioner Melton does have a lower bid of 35, and they did say they would honor their bid. So that's up to you if the court wants to grant the $3 change, and if you would like to change yours to Big City.
Thank you.
And Mr. Woodrum is here present if y'all have any questions for him. I believe his provider has gone up on him, as you know. So the court, we want to try to do our business locally as much as we can with Van Zandt County vendors. And so but we don't want them to lose money at the same time. So he has requested the $3 a ton change.
So,
And the code does allow for this. It cannot go up over 25% of the bid. So of course, he's up to 25%.
Yeah, you
Well,
can say that.
you go ahead, yeah.
Maybe I provided a timeline, and I'd like the gentleman to see if that's okay. This is our timeline that we went back on emails. Our packet was provided. Our packet was provided to Sandy's office on March 31st before 12 o'clock. Just after noon at 12:10, the same day, we received our first price increase letter from Big City Crushed Concrete that would be effective July the 3rd. Our bid was already delivered, sealed to Sandy's office. They're asking for, or they went up $2 to $3 a ton on their material, on the crushed concrete to us. On April the 24th, Arcosa increased their price $3 to $5 a ton. We were not made aware of that until May the 4th. At that point, the bids had already been awarded for a $3 to $5 increase from Arcosa. We're just asking for a $3 increase on our bid, just to cover the price of the material only. The trucking stays the same.
And your name is?
Brian Woodrum, I'm sorry.
Okay, Brian, thank you, no problem.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion has been made and approved the change order for the road and bridge materials from Wood Construction. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make Brian is local. He has a business here in Van Zandt County. Big City is out of Dallas. I do like to give our whatever we can to our local construction people and people that provide our asphalt and millings and rock and concrete. If they have something, if they have a company here in Van Zandt County, I'd like to take away to do that. And I think the motions reflect that. But not only that, Brian, you've always been right on top of everything. If we need something, you're there the next day, and I appreciate that service.
That's precinct 2. I'll echo that in precinct 3. Brian's got me out of trouble several times when we've had a truck go down and we've got something scheduled. I haul the majority of precinct 3's material or in-house ourselves. But if I have a truck go down and I've got something scheduled, I call Brian, he's there. So we appreciate it.
Brian takes good care of us.
All right, any further discussion? All's in favor of the change, say aye. Opposed, like sign, motion passes. Item number 10. Discuss and consider appointing 2 board members to the East Texas Housing Finance Corporation. Was unaware of what this organization is. We received a letter that said we needed to, that we are part of their. We have had board members to this organization. The board members that they have on file were Cindy Maloof, who was appointed in December of 2016, and Bill Levin, who died in 2020. And they are asking us to appoint 2 new members to the board. The East Texas, what is it? Housing Finance Corporation. In 2022, they had 2 projects. One was in Tyler and involved $13.5 million in bonds sold, and in Longview, it involved $9 million in bonds sold. And the purpose of which is to rehabilitation of existing structures, which is a multi-unit housing structure of over 100 units. So this corporation is involved in helping to finance the reconstruction, renovation, modification of multi-unit housing. Okay, there's not over 100 units. There's really not any of that in Van Zandt County. So, but they still need 2 board members to be appointed to meet with them, and it's best in my point of view, best to have some kind of people familiar with the developers in the county to help them if we had a need for this, or maybe others. So I put forth 2 names. One is I've talked with Cindy Maloof, and she is willing to continue serving on the board. They meet twice a year virtually, so there's not a lot of time and effort involved. And then to replace Bill Levin, I asked my brother, Robert A. Reese Jr., if he would be willing to serve. And he said yes, if need be. So those are the 2 names that I have. Are there any other names that you would like to consider? If not, is there a motion to appoint these 2 as the board of directors for the East Texas Housing Finance Corporation?
You did research, you know, form next to kin to a board,
Yes.
make sure.
Yeah, this is not, there's no remuneration incurred on this. The board members are not paid anything. And so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion made by Virgil Middleton. Is there a second?
Second, Pearson.
Second by Keith Pearson. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Item number 11, discuss and consider authorizing the county judge to sign a contract with People's Communication for internet service at the sheriff's office.
This is a 3-year contract to bring the bandwidth of the sheriff's office up to 50 by 50 instead of where it's at right now. And the cost is the same, $250 a month.
What is it currently?
20 by 20.
20 by 20.
Who's the current mayor?
Same thing.
Same people.
Oh, it's the same.
Right.
People's is your vendor now.
We're just increasing it. Same cost,
We're just doubling our bandwidth at the same time.
more than double,
I'll make a motion.
2.5.
All right, motion made by Chad, Commissioner LaPrade to, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Melton. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, motion passes. Item number 12, discuss and consider putting out the RFP for the communication towers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I will do a quick run through of what the RFP has in it and then open it up for any questions that you guys may have.
For those of you who don't know, this is Mr. Barry Black. He he works for a consulting firm, Trot Communications.
So this is the second part of the radio project, the second RFP. The first RFP went out and solicited bids, and a vendor was selected to provide the radio equipment. So this is the RFP that will actually provide the tower infrastructure, the towers, the shelters, the generators, and the compounds where all that equipment will be installed across the county to provide this new countywide radio system for first responders. The goal is to really release the RFP this afternoon. We will have a mandatory pre-proposal conference on July 24th over at the airport, starting at 9 o'clock. That's mandatory. Anybody who wants to bid on this needs to come. After that meeting, which will be a couple hours, we'll go out and tour the 5 sites where the equipment will be installed and constructed. Make sure everybody understands what they're dealing with there. There is a deadline for questions that will be Thursday, July 27th. So any questions that anyone has will be coming into Sandy, who's the RFP manager. Again, on this one. And she will funnel those questions to us, and we will work on getting answers and getting those published as an addendum to the RFP. The proposals are due on Friday, August 4th at 3 p.m. So there's 4 main sections to the RFP. There's information for respondents that kind of says what all they need to provide, how many copies, what the proposals have to include to be compliant. And then section 2 is the general terms and conditions that they have to agree to. Section 3 is the technical and performance requirements. This is all the technical parameters that they have to follow for this project. And then the last section 4 is installation, testing, maintenance, and warranty. So that's the 4 main sections of the RFP that y'all saw. There's also some attachments. There is a proposal pricing sheet that's already customized so that all proposals have exactly the same pricing and we can compare those. There's also a bunch of sample forms that are required to be filled out. Attachment 3 is the land survey drawings. There were surveys done at 4 of the facilities. We have those to include, and then the 5th facility is actually a tower down in precinct 4 that's being leased. It's an existing tower. So we didn't get a land survey on that one, but attachment 4 is the full set of construction drawings for that facility from the tower owner. Attachment 5 is almost an 80 megabyte file, but it is the L3 Harris grounding lightning protection guidelines. This is a really important document that says how all the surge protection, the grounding, the lightning protection with all of the facilities that are provided, what they need to follow to do that. And by the way, L3 Harris is the selected radio vendor, so that's their specification. And then attachment 6 is a checklist for evaluating qualified contractors by NATE. That's a tower organization to make sure they have safety training and all that kind of stuff to be able to erect these towers and do it in a safe manner. And they follow all those things. And then the very last attachment to the RFP is the Van Zandt County permit for installation of culverts. There will be culverts in each of these facilities built, except for maybe at the sheriff's office, but at the other locations, except for the lease tower, there will need to be a culvert installed for the road that goes into the shelter or compound. Wanted to point out that a week before we delivered the RFP to the court to start their review, we provided the same document to L3 Harris and to GrantWorks for them to look at the document, make sure that they didn't see anything that was that didn't cover all the bases for the use of the ARPA funds. And GrantWorks came back and said it looks good. I think the reason it looks so good is because they vetted the first RFP and we used that same information in the second one. So all that information that they required in the first RFP was still in there. Harris had a couple things that they pointed out, and Chad and I spoke, and we integrated almost every one of those into the RFP, and then delivered it to y'all to look at. Again, the project's being funded with the American Rescue Plan Act grant funds, federal grant funds. And so there's a lot of things that have to be followed to do that. And there's things that have to be submitted by everybody that's going to respond to this RFP. And so all that's documented thoroughly in the RFP. The document will be posted on the county auditor's webpage this afternoon, and then we'll send out emails to the hub community, and then also to 10 tower companies that we know of. Some that are real close, some that are in the county and some that are real close to the county here. And then of course, it's going to be posted in the newspaper starting on Sunday for the next 2 weeks as a requirement as well. Let's see here. As I mentioned, Sandy Hill is the RFP manager. There is a surety bond that's required with all proposals. And then there's also going to be a performance bond required by the company who is selected. Will have to provide a performance bond to make sure to kind of make sure that they follow up everything they need to. And that is at contract execution. So whoever's selected will need to provide that performance bond down the road. Let's see here. So our respondent profile for all proposals is we're looking for qualifications, project organization, and who the key personnel are that are going to work on the project, how they're going to support and maintain the equipment. We need professional references, of course. We want a list of their subcontractors and what they're going to do as far as the project goes. We want to look at their project approach, and then of course, you know, how they'll escalate issues if those issues do come up. So a problem escalation procedure. We also asked them to go through the whole RFP, which is about 80 pages, and provide us a point-by-point response. So we want them to say section 1.1, yes, we agree. 1.2, we agree. If they have anything that they don't agree with, they need to call it out in their proposal so that we know this. And so that's the point by point. Of course, the pricing, and with the pricing pages that we've developed, everybody's pricing will be very similar and easy to compare. So the proposals will be reviewed by the same committee that reviewed the first set of proposals, the evaluation committee that the court set up. And then, so the evaluation criteria is 35% on technical compliance, 20% on references and qualifications, 35% on price, and 10% on their project implementation schedule. That makes up the 100%. We've got insurance requirements in the proposal as well for general liability, umbrella, auto, workers' comp, employee liability, pollution liability, professional liability. All those are in there. And we've also developed a payment milestone so that they get paid along the way, but they also don't get paid until they meet final acceptance. They've done everything they need to do. So we kind of set that up per site. We will have a design review with the selected vendor to go over the details. And then the county will give them a notice to proceed. And that's when they'll start ordering their equipment and having the towers manufactured and ordering the generators and the shelters and everything. But just because they have an executed contract, we don't want them to go off and start ordering equipment until we've seen the detailed design and make sure that everybody's on board and there's not a change. We're asking for optional pricing on a couple different size generators. We're going for a propane generator, but we're also asking for pricing for diesel generators. We're looking at pricing for two different sizes shelters, a 12x12 shelter and a 12x16 shelter. Some of the sites need more space. If 12x16 comes in at a really good price compared to the 12x12, maybe we'll consider 12x16 for more than just one or two sites. So we just want to see that different pricing, price points. The 5 sites are the site names that are the official site names are Precinct 1, County Road 1819. That'll be a new 300-foot tower. Precinct 2, County Road 2301. That is a new 300-foot tower. Precinct 3, County Road 3433. That will be a new 300-foot tower. Precinct 4, we're calling it the Tillman site. That's the existing 340-foot guy tower that'll be used. And then the last site is the Van Zandt County Sheriff's Office. That'll be a new 300-foot tower built at the back of the property. The scope, the RFP clearly calls out the scope of all these different sites. We've got regulatory studies that need to be performed. That includes things related to the FAA and the FCC. And then there's geotechnical studies that are required. And that's core drilling at the sites to look at the ground to make sure that the tower is properly designed, the foundation. If there's a lot of movement in the soil, then they need to treat the soil or design the tower foundation a little differently. So those are a requirement. Of course, there's going to be a tower compound at all the sites except the lease site, and that's going to be a fenced compound with fresh rock with a textile underneath the rock to keep vegetation from growing through. And there'll be utilities pulled, and then of course the shelter and the generator in the tower will be inside the fenced compound. Then 4 of the sites will require new towers. All the sites will require shelters and generators and utilities and grounding. And then 2 sites, the site precinct 3 and the sheriff's office are going to require a fiber run. The tower sitting behind the sheriff's office, we need a fiber run from the tower to the dispatch center. There's some critical equipment in the dispatch center that has to be connected. We could use microwave. We got quotes on that. Real expensive just for that little hop across the property. So trenching down the side of the property and pulling a fiber was the most cost-effective solution there. And then at the precinct 3 site off of County Road 3433, that there will be fiber somewhere close brought by the COG, and that final run of fiber to the shelter needs to be done by the tower vendor. So those 2 runs of fiber as well. We're asking for construction drawings that show the detailed site plan, electrical site plan, and a drawing of the inside of the shelter. Let's see here. We've got the tower requirements are probably the most critical here. We're asking them to design these towers using the TIA EIA 222-8H risk category 3 standard. I know that's a lot, but that is the category 3 is public safety. So it means that the tower will withstand stronger winds, stronger storms, and things like that. But the H standard is the most current standard for structural analysis. I believe a lot of towers, older towers, were done with F standard. That was like maybe 16, 18 years ago. But H will ensure that these towers are really strong and can withstand your typical storms for this area. Again, the towers will all be 300-foot freestanding, no guy wires, solid steel legs, no hollow legs. The RFP talks about the transmission line ladders, the FAA lighting that'll have to go on the towers, the grounding. And we're asking for 2 different tower designs. One will support the county's radio equipment, 1 cellular company to lease space on the tower, and 2 wireless internet service providers. That'll be the first design tower. That's then if you want to beef the tower up and be able to hold more equipment, if you have more interest in leasing space on the tower, then the next design, tower design 2, would allow for 2 additional cellular companies, like T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon, Dish Wireless. So we're asking for 2 different designs. We don't want to overbuild the tower, and then we're asking for all the designs will have a 30% growth factor for the county, just the county's equipment, not for these additional carriers, just for y'all's equipment. So the RFP talks about all this equipment, provides all the loading, the parameters, talks about the L3 Harris design and where all the antennas need to be installed. gives all the specifications so that the tower vendors can run the proper structural analysis. It includes a drawing that shows this visually as well. The equipment shelters, it lays out all the cable trays and the foundation requirements, and that it will have a fire extinguisher in the room and all that kind of stuff. There'll be 400 amp single phase 240 volt AC service brought into each of the sites. That'll be more than planning to do what Harris needs and have additional capacity. The HVAC units on the shelters will be redundant. So there's two. One HVAC unit can cover the whole load of cooling the room, the shelter. If both units fail, there is a third redundancy it's a vent that opens with a fan that pulls the heat out. So that if you had failure of both air conditioning units, there's a third to pull the heat out of the room until you can get those air conditioners fixed. But that's last resort. So it's got that in the design. There's a lot of alarms for the shelters that will be pulled back to a centralized point, including high temperature, low temperature, intrusion, fire and smoke, generator diagnostics, the propane or diesel tank diagnostics, the FAA lighting, and then also diagnostics on the HVAC units. Like I said, we were looking for optional pricing on 2 different tower designs, 2 different size shelters, a 30 kilowatt and a 40 kilowatt generator, both in propane or diesel. So pricing on both of those. And then we're also looking at some additional kind of bumper to bumper warranty on the equipment provided. We're asking for 1 year, but we're also asking an optional pricing for 2 and 3 years. Last thing is the installation, testing, and maintenance. So there'll be a implementation schedule. There will be acceptance testing to make sure everything's installed properly. For milestone payments, there'll be a punch list, and things will be provided in as-built documentation. There'll be training on whatever equipment requires training for county personnel, like the FAA lighting system and maybe the generator, things like that. And then once final acceptance occurs, then they'll be paid their last milestone payment and the initial warranty period would start. So that's kind of a quick run through of what the RFP has. We're wanting to release that today to, of course, the hub community, because that's a requirement of the use of the ARPA funds. But then also we've identified about 10 tower companies that we would like to send this to directly. And like I said, it'll be also published in the newspaper, and anybody that wants to go to your website and of course download it can get it there as well. Are there any questions? I know that was quite a bit of information. And
yes, who is responsible for getting electrical service installed to the tower site?
the tower vendors, the selected tower vendor that is under their scope, they'll need to work with the local power company to bring that in. The RFP talks about bringing that to the compound, the fence compound area. It can come overhead, but once it gets inside the compound, it needs to be underground. So we specify that because here we have a communication tower. We don't want a bunch of power lines running around overhead near where people may be climbing on a metal structure.
Okay. Who is responsible for coordinating the studies with the FAA and FCC?
Good question. So the initial filing of the FAA 7460 forms, we are going to file. And I have almost all that information compiled. When you do an FAA filing, you have to tell them the frequencies that are going to be used at the site as well. They like to make sure there's not going to be any interference to air navigation. So those will be filed. There's no requirement for signature from someone on the county to submit those. Like an FCC application, it requires a signature by you, judge, for that application, but not for an FAA. So we will get those FAAs filed for the 4 sites that are the new tower builds. The tower down at precinct 4, that's all taken care of course, because that tower is already built. So that's all squared away. But Once the FAAs are filed, then all the regulatory after that will be on the tower vendor. So there's some notifications, like for instance, once they top out the tower with the steel, they have to notify the FAA that the tower is now built, and they put on temporary FAA lighting on the tower that's powered by batteries until your permanent system is installed that's powered by, hardwired electricity. So that's another requirement we have in here, that they, do all that. So all the regulatory after the initial FAA filing is on the tower vendor. That includes some FCC things and some making sure that everybody's notified that this is not that this tower is being constructed, and that there's any historical landmarks or anything around it, that they're properly notified and have a chance to respond.
Yeah. All of the initial discussions I've been involved in, having to talk about a 250-foot towers. And now we're talking 300-foot towers, which is substantially more
Taller. Yeah, so originally with the RFP that went out the first time, we thought that somewhere around 250 to 300 would be the height, after we did some propagation studies and looked at these heights. To get the guaranteed coverages that the county was looking for, portable outdoor coverage on 95% of the county. Then the in-building penetration at the mandatory buildings, which included many county buildings, and then the major high school buildings, which are the biggest, densest buildings that are really out there in the county. Harris, when they ran the analysis, and when Motorola, when all the proposals came in for the original P25 RFP, most of them were all at the 300-foot level at that point. And so as we kind of work through this, one of the microwave shot from precinct 2 to the sheriff's office goes over, I think, the highest point in the county. And so those microwave dishes have to go way high on the towers, at like 275 feet, 285 feet, just to get over that hill. In reality, a lot of it is really just to get that in-building coverage that y'all are looking for, the portable outdoor coverage throughout 95% of the county. And, in that case, the microwave shot across that Sycamore Hill, I believe it's called. So that's why the towers were increased some additional height to accommodate for that.
Okay.
That comes with additional cost.
That's true. And I think originally when we looked at the cost estimates, when we did that originally during the needs assessment, needs and requirements study that we did last year, we looked at 250 to 300-foot towers and that pricing for those. So that's why we're really looking at two different tower designs. We don't want to design a tower to hold, all this equipment, when in reality, the interest in maybe leasing space on one of the towers isn't as great as the other. And so you can kind of build more of a scaled down tower that supports your equipment and some additional equipment, but not, all this additional equipment. Because yes, it does. The taller you go and the stronger you build, the more it costs. So that's why we're asking for some different price points, so we can kind of see those in the proposal stage. A vendor can be selected, a tower vendor can be selected. And then at the detailed design review, you can make your decision on exactly, okay, we're going to go with the smaller shelters, or we're going to go with the larger generator at this site and the smaller one at this site. But we've made sure through Harris, L3 Harris, that all the parameters that they need to install their system and make it work is covered here in the RFP, from the generators and electricity and equipment space and tower height to put the antennas to make sure your guarantees for coverage are intact.
So the surety bond in the amount equal to 5% of the total proposed price of all hardware. That won't know that till we get the proposals back. And
so when they do their with the pricing sheet that we've developed, there'll be a total at the bottom of what their proposed price is. And they need to provide a surety bond with their proposal at the time it's submitted to Sandy before the due date or, on the day of, but just by 3 o'clock that day. They need to provide a surety bond of 5% of what their proposal says at the bottom line. And that is really just to make sure that, if they can't get a surety bond, you probably don't want to be getting a proposal for them for a project of this size. And that happened with the first one. We had that happen with one vendor there on the first RFP, that they couldn't get the surety bond. And then once you select a vendor, once the evaluation criteria has been gone through and you select a vendor, then you get them under contract, then they need to provide that performance bond, which is a more substantial and more expensive bond to ensure that they meet all the requirements of the RFP and continue to work.
The performance bond,
Yes, sir.
and what percent, how does that determine the amount?
That amount, I think it's for 100% of the cost of the project.
100%,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because you want to be covered if something
That's
happens. Typically, you don't see, and again, if they can't get a performance bond, then that's, kind of a tell as well. But, that kind of keeps them working. No, you don't want to, nobody wants the performance bond called on them because then they probably won't get another project, that requires bonding. So that's why we do that. And, the scale of this just requires that to be done. And we did that exact same thing in the first RFP. That's highly recommended.
When is the projected completion time, or is it going to be totally dependent on the vendors and what they?
That great question. It will depend on their schedule. But let's see, I believe we had, and Chad, help me out if I don't have my schedule right in front of me. But we are thinking that we're going to have towers coming, vertically stacked and the compounds ready to be handed over to Harris starting in December. And this is all contingent upon, getting this RFP out today, giving them 30 days approximately to do their proposals. During that time, having the mandatory pre-proposal conference so that we can answer any questions they have. I'll do a more detailed run through of the whole thing just to make sure everybody's on the same page that day. And then, like I said, we'll go out and we're physically going to meet at every proposed tower location, including the new tower, so they can see that because they still have to do a shelter and generator and utilities there. That we go see all those sites, and then they have another week to submit questions. And then there's about one more week and then the proposals are due. If we stay on that schedule and we get proposals and we don't do a best and final offer, then I think we can, there's about 2 or 3 weeks in there to evaluate, make a selection, bring it back to the court. Because I've kind of looked at all the court dates and things like that as well. Chad and I worked hard to come up with a schedule on this, and then we'll get a vendor under contract, and 30 days later, we'll have the detailed design review, and then they start ordering equipment and building foundations. I've talked to quite a few tower companies, and it'll probably be that they're out doing foundations at all the 4 sites at the same time, and then the concrete cures, and then during that time, it's about a 6 to 8 week time to manufacture the steel. And then the steel comes in and they start, they'll have a big frame there to erect that. And the other orders will go into for the shelters and the generators and all the other ancillary things. But like I said, we're targeting, I think, all of it to be done around April. All the towers ready, and Harris can then come in and start really doing their stuff. This tower vendor, let me make this point real quick. The tower vendor that will be selected will not be putting any of L3 Harris's equipment on the tower or in the shelter. That's all Harris. That you've already paid for that in the original RFP. So that's Harris's responsibility and their contractors to put all the antennas on the tower. This is just to provide the tower and the infrastructure at ground level to accommodate what Harris needs to make this whole radio system work. So.
Does the fencing include razor wire on top?
We do. It's an 8-foot fence with 3 strands of razor wire that go up another foot at a 45-degree angle pointing outward. So it'll be 9 feet overall on the fencing. And yes, it's got razor wire on the entrance gate is a 20-foot double swing gate. So plenty big to pull a vehicle in there. And then razor wire on it and all the way around. There's also security lighting that'll be on the shelter, on all 4 corners of the shelter, and then by the door as well, with a photo cell. So at night, that'll come on at dusk and provide some lighting there on the premises. And then go off in the morning.
Okay.
And I think, let's see, we've also considered in the design of these towers, some interoperability antennas to be mounted low on the tower, only about 20 feet up. So that'll give you all the chance to interoperate with surrounding counties that aren't on an L3 Harris P25 system, mainly going up in the Rains area and then going east. And then also interoperability with others back towards Dallas. So the towers will support that kind of equipment as well. And also the relocation of some of your VHF repeaters that you have today for interoperability can go on those towers as well. And you can cancel your leases on some of the towers you have now where you're leasing space. Those antennas can be moved over and those resources can still be utilized because you have those, especially for when counties come in to help you guys in a joint response. If they don't have a P25 radio system and they can't talk on your system, they can talk on those VHF repeaters, and dispatch can patch them into a talk group on your new system and allow them to interoperate with you guys in maybe it's a tornado, maybe it's a manhunt or something like that. But that'll give that capability. That was Chad's idea, and I thought it was a great idea to bring those resources off of the towers you're now leasing, put them on the towers that you now will own, and those are in the design to go in there. And Harris is going to put up those antennas and run the lines down into the shelter. You've already paid for that in the first RFP. All you'll have to do is now get somebody just to move that repeater from the shelter at its current site and bring it over and hook it up. Since that's not Harris equipment, so.
I'm sure we can find somebody to do that.
Oh, yeah, that's easy compared to putting all the antenna systems up, but Harris will do that as part of when they hang the other antennas.
What about lightning? Tell us how we're protected against lightning strikes.
There will be a lightning rod on the top of each tower that extends 10 feet up above the top of the tower. We will make sure that the FAA studies are cleared for at least 10 feet over the structure. So the structures are 300 feet. We'll go for at least 310. We'll probably go for 320 of clearance by the FAA. That'll just give you that opportunity if an antenna needs to be mounted on the very top of the tower. You typically want that lightning rod above the antenna. It's kind of hard to get a lightning rod 20 feet over the top of a tower. I mean, that's just structurally not very common. But there will be lightning protection. And as I mentioned, this huge document that L3 Harris published on grounding, lightning protection, and surge protection, there's all sorts of requirements on there to make sure that there's not a surge coming in on the electrical source into the shelter that could mess up the equipment. So there's surge protection there. There's all sorts of grounding requirements for you may not know this, but the fence itself, that in the compound, it gets grounded. The tower gets grounded, the shelter gets grounded, the generator's grounded, everything's grounded to a really tight standard, their standards. And then, like I said, there's the lightning protection on the lightning rod that comes down to ground. And then also the antenna systems are grounded and have polyphasers on them to prevent something coming down into the shelter and damaging your equipment. So all levels of protection are going to be on that. It doesn't mean that it's one, if you got a bad storm and it takes a direct hit, that it's going to prevent, not have some sort of damage, but All the safeguards will be in place to try to prevent that. So yeah, very important on the grounding and the lightning protection and certain.
Any further questions? If not, is there a motion to move forward and approve this RFP to be released?
Motion made.
Is there a second?
Second, Pearson.
All right, any further discussion? No further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Item number 13, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, Pearson.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming and listening to us for that. Don. So you go down the first floor.
Yeah, it's,
You kind of yourself, straight line.
Approximately 30 machines, 30. Now, those are just like 20 that are free.
Mr. Barber, appreciate the paper, look good.
Appreciate that.
It's in my office, there, too. Okay, yeah. I'll remote.
Yeah.
I won't